Hello, so today I'll be reading from page 500 to I don't know, in the sixth book, which is called Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. We are starting again on page 500, and I wanted to read, so yeah. I think he succeeded then, sir, asked Harry. He made a Horcrux. And that's why he didn't die when he attacked me. He had a Horcrux hidden somewhere. A bit of his soul was safe. A bit or more, said Dumbledore. You heard Voldemort. What he particularly, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. But particularly wanted from Horace was an opinion on what would happen to the wizard who created more than one Horcrux. What would happen to the wizard so determined to evade death that he would be prepared to murder many times, repeatedly, so as to store it in many separately concealed Horcruxes. No book would have given him that information. As far as I know, I'm sure as Voldemort knew, no wizard had ever done more than tear his soul into two. Dumbledore paused for a moment, marshalling his thoughts, and then said, 4 years ago, I received what I considered certain proof that Voldemort had split his soul. Where asked Harry? How? You handed it to me, Harry, said Dumbledore. The diary, Riddle's diary. The one giving instructions on how to reopen the Chamber of Secrets. I don't understand, sir, said Harry. Well, although I did not see the riddle who came out from the diary, what you described to me was a phenomenon. I had never witnessed a mere memory starting to act and think for itself. A mere memory sapping the life out of the girl into whose hands it had fallen. No, something much more sinister had lived inside that book, a fragment of soul. I was almost sure of it. The diary had been an Horcrux, but this raised as many questions as it answered. What intrigued and alarmed me most was that the diary had been intended as a weapon, as much as a safeguard. I still don't understand, sir, said Harry. Well, it worked as a Horcrux. It worked as a Horcrux is supposed to work. In other words, the fragment of soul concealed inside it was kept safe and undoubtedly played its part in preventing the death of its owner. But there could be no doubt that Riddle really wanted that diary read, wanted the piece of his soul to inhabit or possess somebody else, so that Slytherin's monster would be unleashed again. Well, he didn't want his hard work to be wasted, said Harry. He wanted people to know he was the Slytherin's heir because he couldn't take credit at the time. Quite correct, said Dumbledore, nodding. But don't you see, Harry, that if he intended the diary to be passed to or planted on some future Hogwarts student, he was being remarkably blasé about the precious fragment of his soul concealed within it. The point of the Horcrux is, of a Horcruxes, as Professor Slughorn explained, to keep part of the self hidden and safe, not to fling it into somebody's path, and run the risk that they might destroy it. As indeed happened, the particular fragment of his soul is no more. She saw to that. The careless way in which Voldemort regarded this Horcrux seemed to ominous me. It suggested that he must have made or been planning to make more Horcruxes, so that the loss of his first would not be so detrimental. I did not wish to believe it, but nothing else seemed to make sense. Then you told me 2 years later that on the night that Voldemort returned to his body, he made a most illuminating and alarming statement to his Death Eaters. I have gone further than anybody along this path that leads to immortality. That was what you told me, he said, further than anybody. And I thought I knew what that meant, though Death Eaters did not. He was referring to his Horcruxes. Horcruxes in plural. Harry, which I do not believe any wizard has ever had, yet it fitted. Lord Voldemort has seemed to grow less human with the passing years, and the transformation he has undergone seemed to me to be only explicable if his soul was mutilated beyond the realms of what we might call usual evil. So he's made himself impossible to kill by murdering other people, said Harry. Why couldn't he make a sorcerer's stone or steal one if he was so interested in immortality? Well, we know that he tried to do just that 5 years ago, said Dumbledore. There are several reasons why. I think a sorcerer's stone would appeal less than Horcruxes to Lord Voldemort. While the elixir of life does indeed extend his life, it must be drunk regularly for all eternity. If the drinker is to maintain their immortality, therefore Voldemort would be entirely dependent on the elixir, and if it ran out or was contaminated, or if the stone was stolen, he would die just like any other man. Voldemort likes to operate alone. Remember, I believe that he would have found the thought of being dependent, even on the elixir, intolerable. Of course, he was prepared to drink it if it would take him out of the horrible part life to which he was condemned after attacking you, but only to regain a body. Thereafter, I am convinced he intended to continue to rely on his Horcruxes. He would need nothing more. If only he could regain a human form, he was already immortal, or as close to immortal as any man can be. But now, Harry, armed with this information, the crucial memory you have succeeded in procuring for us, we are closer to the secret of finishing Lord Voldemort than anyone has ever been before. You heard him, Harry. Wouldn't it be better and make you stronger to have your soul in more pieces? Isn't 7 the most powerfully magical number? Isn't 7 the most powerfully magical number? Yes, I think the idea of a 7-part soul would greatly appeal to Lord Voldemort. He made 7 Horcruxes, said Harry, horror-struck, while several other portraits on the walls made similar noises of shock and outrage. But they could be anywhere in the world, hidden, buried, or invisible. I am glad to see you appreciate the magnitude of the problem, said Dumbledore calmly. But firstly, no, Harry, not 7 Horcruxes, 6. The seventh part of his soul, however maimed, resides inside his regenerated body. That was the part of him that lived a spectral existence for so many years during his exile. Without that, he has no self at all. That 7th piece of soul will be the last that anybody wishing to kill Voldemort must attack. The piece that lives in his body. But the 6 Horcruxes then, said Harry a little desperately. How are we supposed to find them? You're forgetting. You already destroyed one of them, and I have destroyed another. You have? Said Harry eagerly. Yes, indeed, said Dumbledore. He raised his black and burned hair. The ring carried Marvolo's ring, and a terrible curse there was upon it. Had not been. Forgive me the lack of seemly modesty for my prodigious skill, and for Professor Snape's timely action when I returned to Hogwarts, desperately injured. I might not have lived to tell the tale. However, a withered hand does not seem an unreasonable exchange for 7th of Voldemort's soul. The ring is no longer a Horcrux. But how did you find it? Well, as you now know, for many years, I have made it my business to discover as much as I can about Voldemort's past life. I have traveled widely, visiting those places he once knew. I stumbled across the ring hidden in the ruin of the Gaunt's house. It seems that once Voldemort had succeeded in sealing a piece of his soul inside it, he did not want to wear it anymore. He hid it, protected by many powerful enchantments, in the shack where his ancestors had once lived. Morphin had having been carted off to Azkaban, of course, never guessing that I might one day take the trouble to visit the ruin, or that I might be keeping an eye open for traces of magical concealment. However, we should not congratulate ourselves too heartily. You destroyed the dagger, and I the ring. But if we are right in our theory of a 7-part soul for the Horcruxes, 4 Horcruxes remain. And they could be anything, said Harry. They could be odd tin cans or, I don't know, empty potion bottles. You're thinking of portkeys, Harry, which must be ordinary objects, easy to overlook. But would Lord Voldemort use tin cans or old potions to guard his own precious soul? You're forgetting what I have shown you. Lord Voldemort liked to collect trophies, and he preferred objects with a powerful magical history. His pride, his belief in his own superiority, his determination to carve for himself a starting place in the magical history. These things suggest to me that Voldemort would have chosen his Horcruxes with some care, varying objects worthy of the honor. The diary wasn't that special. The diary, as you have said yourself, was proof that he was heir of Slytherin. I'm sure that Voldemort considered it of stupendous importance. So the other Horcruxes, do you think you know what they are? I can only guess, said Dumbledore. For the reasons I have already given, I believe that Lord Voldemort would prefer objects that in themselves have certain grandeur. I have therefore trawled back through Voldemort's past to see if I can find evidence that such artifacts have disappeared around him. The locket, said Harry loudly. Hufflepuff's cup? Yes, said Dumbledore, smiling. I would be prepared to bet, perhaps not my other hand, but a couple of my fingers, that they became Horcruxes. 3 and 4. The remaining 2, assuming again that he created a total of 6, are more of a problem, but I will hazard a guess that having secured objects from Hufflepuff and Slytherin, he set out to track down objects owned by Gryffindor or Ravenclaw, for objects from the 4 founders would, I am sure, have exerted a powerful pull over Voldemort's imagination. I cannot answer for whether he ever managed to find anything of Ravenclaw's. I comment, however, that the only known relic of Gryffindor remains safe. Dumbledore pointed his blackened fingers to the wall behind him, where a ruby-encrusted sword reposed with a glass case. Do you think that's why he really wanted to come back to Hogwarts, sir? To try and find something from one of the other founders? My thoughts precisely, said Dumbledore. But unfortunately, that does not advance us much further, for he was turned away. Or, I'll read half of 506. So I believe, without the chance to search the school, I am forced to conclude that he never fulfilled his ambition of collecting 4 founders' objects. He definitely had 2. He may have 3. That is the best we can do for now. Even if he's got something of Ravenclaw's or of Gryffindor's, that leaves a 6th Horcrux, said Harry, counting on his fingers. Unless he got both. I don't think so, said Dumbledore. I think I know what the 6th Horcrux is. I wonder what you will say when I confess that I've been curious for a while about the behavior of the snake, the genie. The snake? Said Harry. You can use animals as Horcruxes? I'll try reading the other half real quickly. Well, it is indivisible to do so, said Dumbledore, because to confide a part of your soul to find something that you can think and move for itself, it's obviously a very risky business. However, if my calculations are correct, Voldemort was still at least 1 Horcrux short of his goal of 6 when he entered your parents' house with the intention of killing you. He seems to have reserved the process of making Horcruxes for particularly significant deaths. You would certainly have been that. He believed that in killing you, he was destroying the danger that the prophecy had outlined. He believed he was making himself invincible. I am sure that he was intending to make his final Horcrux their death. As far as we know, not ours far. As we know, he failed after an interval of some years. However, he used the genie to kill an old Muggle man, and it might then have occurred to him to turn into his last Horcrux. She underlines the Slytherin connection, which enhances Lord Voldemort's mystique. I think he is perhaps as fond of her as he can be of anything. Bye.